Hello, I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us this week on Newsmakers. Well, the Joplin Area Chamber of Commerce has a lot of activities year-round, and there's no different this year, but one thing that is different is the president. And joining me today, Toby Teeter. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And I'd like to welcome you as president of the chamber. You came on board in December.
That's correct, yes.
And so for the audience, they haven't had a chance to meet with you. So let's start a little bit of background of why were you interested in the first place in the chamber position?
Well, my background is business. I'm not from chamber world. Just take you walk through my background. I'm originally from Carl Junction, Missouri. I went to college at what's now Missouri State University, a degree in finance and insurance, and then went to law school at Mizzou in Columbia. And then I founded an online marketing company in Kansas City that grew rather large. It's exactly what you hear about. I started a company in my basement.
So the entrepreneur true story.
Absolutely. And we went public in 2006.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that success story of I have an idea, we're going to make it happen.
That's correct. And then around 2006 is when I moved back home. I moved back to Joplin, and it was with purpose. I thought through a lot of how I thought in 1992 when I graduated from high school. I didn't think Joplin offered a lot of opportunities as far as entrepreneurship. And so I left town, and I realized that I was kind of part of the problem, not part of the solution. More and more people were leaving Joplin and not coming back. So I thought I would come back and bring some of my life experiences and see what I can do to kind of improve the community. So that was actually my original intent, is when I came back in 2006, is to improve Joplin and see if I can do the entrepreneur thing here.
So you kind of invest in the city you grew up in, or in the region you grew up in, and so forth.
That's correct.
So then you continue to pursue your business interests here in the Joplin region.
Yeah, so in 2006, I founded a couple of online companies here. I started localraces.com along the way, and I also founded a company that does Amazon sales. We actually represent brands. We're a brand accelerator, so we represent brands on Amazon, sell product across Amazon's channel, not only in the U.S. but across the world. And I also was involved with the Griffin Building Project.
Right,
I was the silent 95% owner during that development, and I was also involved in Main Street Joplin initiatives. I was the president of what's now the Downtown Alliance back in the days when we started Third Thursdays. So
that investment in the city, truly, that you were investing your funds as well as your time and efforts in promoting the city and so forth. Well, obviously you came back to Joplin knowing that it had something to offer. What were some of the key attractions you said that Joplin is a place we want to see grow?
Well, I think Joplin is in a unique position regionally. It has a lot of large city amenities. It still has a community feel. Right. And I was one of many young professionals that was attracted to coming back home and having a place where I can raise my children, yet I still have all the local amenities that I want as far as quality of life things. I'm big into cycling, I'm big into running, and so those communities are here. And then plus geographically it's set up well where you can go to Bentonville for the weekend and play, go to a concert in Tulsa, go back up to Kansas City, enjoy the plaza. And so we live big in that manner, and consider those as kind of spokes, with Joplin being the hub.
Right. So the chamber position became a possibility. I know you had to go through a process with that. It's a lot of people were interviewed, and you were one of those. Tell me about that process of being, meeting the people who were making the decisions at the chamber.
You bet. So it was a really interesting process. Like most people, I was just watching this in the news. I was reading this in the paper. I actually never considered applying for this position till rather late in the process. Starting last August, I actually sent an email to some of the search committee, and I didn't talk so much about a vision for the chamber, but more about Joplin
as a whole.
Yeah, my vision for Joplin and where I think the chamber could play a role. And a few on that search committee kind of found that intriguing, and I really just asked for an opportunity to share that vision, and that really started a conversation. And over the course of the next couple of months, I went through the interview process. There were dozens of candidates across the United States from traditional chamber roles, and so I was kind of the apple versus a bunch of oranges. And they were looking at 30 people, and 14, then 9, then 3, then 2, and then ultimately I was offered the position.
Great. Now you say traditional chamber roles. Define for the audience what we mean by, quote, a traditional chamber.
Sure. Well, I'm not from chamber world, meaning my career path wasn't through other chambers of commerce.
Okay.
I've never been directly in economic development or leading an economic development organization, but a lot of my skills translated really seamlessly. At one point, I was a lobbyist with a law firm called Hinder and Andre in Jefferson City, so I've done public policy.
Right.
I've worked with the Department of Economic Development in a number of initiatives. I've been in community development, and I've been in small business incubator space. I've been in capital markets, actually creating markets, venture capital and angel networks. So you put all this together and you start seeing how this works well for a chamber presidency.
So you can see a lot of those things that you have done hands-on are part of the elements that make up a successful chamber,
yes.
and tying that together. So since you've been on board since December, you've had a feel for the organization. How do you feel about the strength of the Joplin Chamber now that you've had a chance to kind of lead it for a few months?
So our chamber is a very strong chamber, but it's a very traditional chamber. So the opportunity is we have a very strong staff, many of which have been there for 20 plus years. So that's a very good base, and we have very strong programs, some of which have been successful programs for decades. And what we're looking to do is do what we do and keep the best of what we do and add some new layers. There's actually a kind of a reinvention nationally about what is a Chamber of Commerce, and it's really exciting to kind of participate and meet with other chambers across the region. I say region, across the Midwest, and realize that as a group, chambers of commerce across the United States are really reassessing its role in the business community. And
the business community, of course, has changed tremendously. And you're talking about entrepreneurs to major corporations. There's so many different mixes, I imagine, when you use that term business community nowadays.
That is true. Our metropolitan area is very dynamic. We have multinational conglomerates with major operations here. We have startups. We have higher education, like Missouri Southern is a stakeholder in our chamber, as well as school districts, nonprofits, the medical school. So all those play a role within the chamber.
Now you mentioned regional. I mean, when I introduced you, I said the Joplin Area Chamber of Commerce. So it's not just Joplin city limits and no other cities are involved. You really have a regional impact with the chamber. Yeah,
so our chamber is a little bit unique compared to other chambers in the immediate area. We do service an area outside of the bounds of the city limits of Joplin. We consider ourselves a regional chamber, a metropolitan chamber. But this role is actually unique compared to other chamber presidencies because the chamber president is also a head of other organizations that have regional interests.
Okay.
So as president of the Joplin Area Chamber of Commerce, you are also the head of an organization called the Joplin Regional Partnership, which is an economic development arm that is a regional initiative that goes from Nevada, Missouri, all the way down to Miami, Oklahoma. And there's also another entity called the Joplin Industrial Development Authority, which owns the Crossroads Industrial Park. And that is another organization, another board that I report to and operate for.
So you wear a lot of different hats, perhaps, as the president, tying that together. And I know, talking about economic development, that I've heard in the past that if you bring a business to this community, it's not just helping one city, that it does spread out throughout the community.
Yeah, the economic impact of a new business is huge, and it does affect all of our communities in our region.
And you mentioned the other area chambers. Do you do networking with those other chambers? Obviously, there's smaller towns that have smaller chambers, but
Yeah, so we work with area chambers. I've been actually visiting other chambers in our immediate area, and there's all kinds of ways where we work better together. One example actually is Eggs and Issues. Eggs and Issues is a venue where the local legislative delegation meets with citizens, literally has breakfast.
Have breakfast and talk about what's happening in the Capitol.
Talks about the bills of the day, and we actually take turns with other chambers to host that. The first one was in Carthage, the next one's in Webb City, the following one's in Joplin, and then the last one's in Neosho.
Great. So throughout that legislative session, you're bringing people together from throughout the region.
Yep, and that's an excellent example of how we work with other chambers.
Great. Now, of course, membership's a big part of the chamber. You have a lot of members, a lot of diversity, I'm sure, among the membership as well in the chamber, the businesses.
Yeah, so we've been really fortunate throughout this change. The chamber membership has been really stable. We're looking forward to some growth. We're really excited about some of our new initiatives, and I know a lot of chamber members that have disengaged or got less involved over the last few years are really piqued their interest and are looking at re-engaging and getting involved in the chamber. So we welcome everybody.
Has that been a big part of your job, just getting out to meet the members and talk to the people as well?
Almost continuously. Yeah, I am out and about meeting from 7 in the morning to 7 at night for 2 months straight now.
Are there any common themes that you hear from the members as far as Joplin needs this, or have you considered this, or anything?
Yeah. The big talk, basically the basis of the conversation, and when I say stakeholders, I'm talking everything from startups to large companies. I'm also talking to the school districts, the private school district, the private schools, the higher education centers, our hospital systems, and nonprofits. And the conversation is the same. We talk about what their greatest aspirations are for their organization, and then we talk about what the business community's role is in achieving those aspirations. It's a really open conversation, and it really starts framing and start defining really what is a chamber, and that's something we're reassessing. We're talking about those greater goals for our community, and as a chamber organization, we are on the forefront of what the business community can do to help achieve those community goals.
Great. And of course, you are the president, but you have a board that works with you, a board of directors, then to help with the operations and oversee things.
Yes, we have a very active board. We have a set of board members and also some ex officios. So we have representatives from all the different stakeholders I spoke of.
So they are involved in these decisions and the feedback and planning. And
in fact, the next stage is our board retreat. In a couple weeks, we are having a board retreat off-site, and it's a day and a half of almost a reset. We're talking about our mission and maybe a more efficient way to use our resources to achieve those goals.
Yeah, it's good for any organization to look at your goals, your mission, and future planning and tying that together. Well, someone who you visit with, they're a member, or maybe they were a member now they're not, but they ask you, why should I be a member of the chamber? What sort of answer do you give to them? Why should I invest in the chamber from a business person's point of view?
One, we're going to do a few things different. We're actually going to go to those businesses, and we already started this process, and we're going and we're talking to those businesses, and we're finding out what's our biggest prohibitor of growth. How can we grow your business? What can we do for your organization to achieve your goals? And then we have an open conversation about the role of the community in the city of Joplin, and any other resources that we can rally to help you grow your business. And that's really kind of changing the mindset, and so we're actually really engaging those organizations. Another way we're looking at this and how we're talking is it's not so much an investment in the chamber, but we want these businesses to invest in the community through the chamber. So that's kind of a different proposition. Is we're talking about what we can do together to move things forward, grow our community, and achieve all the goals that we hope to achieve.
So I imagine there's a lot of conversation with city leaders or other organizations that we've had groups that say Vision 2020 or things like that. Those groups that you're coordinating those types of visions for the future with as well.
It's a great example. There's a lot of different organizations that have long-term goals for our community. I am directly, you brought up 2020, 2022. That is an organization, a group of people that have been vetting community's aspirations for going on 10 years. And that is something that I'm working with them to see what the chambers can basically move those forward. So it's really exciting times because so many people have been invested in this community post-tornado and really thinking long-term. And so a lot of these kind of big box projects I think are really going to start coming together in the next 3 to 5 years. And it's going to be a fun opportunity for me as the chamber president to be directly involved in things like that. I feel very strongly that the Cornell Art Complex is going to come together in the coming years. We have a courthouse initiative that is on the April ballot. That's going to be about a $49 million courthouse facing 7th Street, and it's really a judicial campus.
It's more than just a little building, right?
Exactly right. It's going to be well appointed and set up and catty corner to the Cornell complex. So we're going to have 2 pieces of modern architecture facing 7th Street, and it'll be the entrance to our corridor of Main Street.
Great. And of course, downtown being a focus for a number of years, going back to the days of Main Street Joplin, saying let's bring businesses downtown, let's develop downtown. Do you feel that that's a positive swing then, that things are happening? I mean, we've seen a lot of development in the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah, the last 15 years downtown has been amazing. We actually went from somewhere around 70% empty storefronts to less than 8%, and that's something they've been tracking. I think the next step really is really creating a center of innovation and entrepreneurship as a corridor, and we're looking at a collaborative approach. We don't think we as a chamber is the sole source of kind of instigating that. We're actually talking to Missouri Southern. We're also talking to the Downtown Alliance, and we're talking about how we can collaborate and share our resources so we can do a combination of workspaces, workshops, seminars, and community networking to actually cultivate and create a startup community. And then we can layer in some opportunities such as private equity and angel funding for those initiatives.
So it sounds collaboration's a big key for things. It's not just your job and their job. It's let's see what we can do together.
Yeah, a big shift in the chamber and without the communities. We're trying to find ways to work together, and we're trying to keep our community aspirations above and beyond, and focus on those above our own organizational goals.
Okay. Yeah. Of course, you mentioned education. Of course, we have the K through 12, the higher education, the medical school. Are these big draws when people look at the Joplin community and what we have in terms of education and tying into that overall package?
It is. It is. I've been speaking to this and actually wrote an article about this topic. The big shift in economic development is not so much business attraction; it's talent attraction and retention. Right. So our ability to grow this community is going to be hinged upon our ability to attract and maintain our 20 and 30 somethings. So those are the amenities that people are looking for. This town is changing by the day, and it's getting far more dynamic. We have medical students in their late 20s coming from all over the world to go to grad school here, and they're looking for certain amenities, and they're soft amenities. We're talking about trails, we're talking about coffee shops, brunch culture,
quality life things.
Quality of life things that millennials and Generation Z is seeking, and so those are all sudden economic development issues.
So do you see that, you said, you left Joplin area as a youngster, a younger person. Is that one of the trends you'd like to reverse as far as, people graduate from Missouri Southern and the other schools that, don't necessarily say, I've done my education, I'm leaving the area?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important for our community to define what we are and develop a brand and some themes around that brand, and then market our community not only to people that aren't familiar with Joplin but grew up here. There's a lot of people that grew up here, left Joplin, and don't realize how far Joplin has came in the last 5 to 10, 15 years. It's time to reintroduce the new Joplin. Bring
them back. And of course you have programs for some of the younger professionals in the community already through the chamber. They're trying to encourage the 20-somethings that you mentioned,
right.
Try to encourage their careers.
So we have a young professional network. It's for under 40 professionals. If your employer is a chamber member, you have a discounted membership to YPN, but you still have eligibility to join YPN even though your employer is not a chamber member. And that they have all kinds of opportunities. The important part for YPN is they're trying to develop a path of leadership and create civic-minded young professionals. Right. So there's social opportunities, and there's actually opportunities to lead work groups and do different initiatives. One of their initiatives actually is connectivity, trails, and kind of cycling and walkable streets. And so that's an example of a work group where they meet regularly to affect change. To
try to say, what can we do? What are some possibilities? And piecing this together. And you even have programs for high school students. So we're talking about working with the youngsters, the people who haven't even started their college career or work career yet.
Yeah, a long-standing program the Chamber initiated is Tomorrow's Leaders Today. It is for high school seniors. They apply to join this program. If accepted, there's a year-long, school year-long program where they go around and learn about different aspects of our community, different sectors. We have Manufacturing Day, we have Public Policy Day, we have opportunity to go to City Hall, understand how city works, and they even go to Jeff City and meet with the delegation there.
So they're getting a good education about Joplin and what's involved to make things happen in the business world.
Absolutely. And then when they go off to college, where they stay here or go on, the idea is to better understand not only how our community ticks, but what we have to offer as far as how diverse and how much opportunity there is here. So if they go off, hopefully they'll come back home.
Come back and say, I'm going to take my job and bring it back in and work there. And then Leadership Joplin is something we've heard about throughout the years.
So Leadership Joplin is a program that is annual. There's a class of about 30 to 40 professionals. They start in January January and they graduate in June, and they too, it's about professional development. Typically, they're younger professionals. Typically, a lot of the employers will actually scholarship their participation. And likewise, they work together as a class and do different things within the community, and they learn about different aspects of our community. And those classes over time they get really close
because they're together all those professions.
Each graduating leadership Joplin class really stays networked throughout their lifetime. At this point, there's actually hundreds and hundreds of leadership Joplin graduates and alumni in our community
who are working in those different positions throughout the community and tying that together. Use the word networking. That sounds like that's a big key for the chambers. People getting to know others. It's not just I'm a member, I show up for these little events and I leave.
That's true. Another aspect of the chamber involvement is networking. The chamber works hard to create the venue to affect transactional relationships. Whether you're selling a product or service or looking for a new job, there's an opportunity within the chamber to network with your community and understand what's going on.
Right. Well, going back to your work as an entrepreneur, working in Joplin, you mentioned working with the innovative ideas and so forth. Is that a big part as far as having some mentors or peers that people can work with when they're starting off with those incubator ideas, starting things? So
there's a couple of new initiatives that we're working on. One is mentorships. We're looking at assembling what I'm calling entrepreneurs in residence, existing successful entrepreneurs that understand everything from raising funds to all the struggles that have to do with starting up a new business. And we're working on actually creating a staff of entrepreneurs in residence that will be able to service local startups. Another area of mentorship is we're also looking to assemble executives in residence. We have a lot of actually area CEOs that have recently retired in the last few years, and we're re-engaging those individuals and getting them to enter mentorship relationships.
Great. So someone who may not formally be working day to day, but they still have that knowledge to share with others and tying it. So like trying to enrich in the community there as well. I know you mentioned eggs and issues and some of the political aspects of keeping people informed. What about that advocacy role with the chamber? Are you still involved with letting people know in Jefferson City what the concerns are from the Joplin region?
That's an area we're going to step up. So some chambers actually have full-time staff members that are registered lobbyists and actually lobby on behalf of their business community. Springfield, Missouri is an example where they actually have a full-time staff member. In our chamber over the years, we've done a little more passive approach. We're going to step it up a notch going forward. One thing we're working towards is actually changing and being more proactive about advocacy and keeping a better track of what's going on not only at City Hall but also the state and federal levels, and more importantly actually communicating that back to our membership. And that's probably one of the biggest changes that we're going to be doing in 2019 is how we communicate with our membership. Right now we send 2 emails a week. We have a monthly newsletter that is either a PDF or is a paper newsletter.
Mail a newsletter.
Still mail them out. Moving forward, we're going to do something a little more dynamic, and it's actually an area of my background, which is online media. We're actually going to produce an online publication of talking about our business news, and then we're going to layer in other components, including advocacy and doing like weekly updates, especially during the legislative session of January to May.
So as things are happening like right now in February, March, they're just making decisions in Jefferson City, for instance, that people need to know about how this affects them.
Yeah, we want to help with that loop. We want to communicate in real time what's going on in Jefferson City, help our business community understand, and then if they are affected through us, we can work with those issues specifically and get them to align with their state representatives and get them to Jeff City to help solve those problems.
So you're in regular contact with the local or the regional elected officials as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the chamber is also involved and members of regional economic development and state economic development entities that have full-time legislative liaisons that actually work on our behalf as well.
Great.
So we're in regular communication with those gentlemen.
So a lot of possibilities and so forth. Well, as far as John Q. Public who's watching and they say, well, how does the chamber impact my life? They're not a business owner. They don't go to the events and so forth. What would you say to that person, if they walk up to you on the street and say, I live in Joplin, I work at a company, but what does the chamber mean for me?
That's a good question. So again, what we're doing as an organization is we're trying to decide how to attract and maintain our young workforce. That's one of the top tier things that we're moving towards. And so we're working on being a catalyst, both on the private sector and public sector, and reinvesting and getting people involved in their community to champion those changes that will attract our younger generation. So that's first and foremost. Right. And another area is the referral side, business networking, and then another area is educational opportunities. We're working on actually building out workshops and seminars that cover different areas. A good example of this is our local retailers are really focused on buying local. The other half of that equation is selling global. The local chambers here, the local retailers really underrepresent the e-commerce market. And one of the areas of background that I have is the ability to do an omni-channel where they sell out the front door to the local consumers and they sell the back door to the world consumers.
The whole world is your customer.
Absolutely. It's a new world now when you have marketplaces like Amazon, Walmart.com, Etsy, and others. It's really a huge opportunity for our local market to participate in international sales.
So your customer is more than just the person down the street. It's the person on the other side of the country or around the world.
Absolutely.
Well, I know you have a lot coming forward as far as this year. Any specific, you mentioned the changes and the transitions, the specific goal that you've set as a president in this first year?
I want to move fast, but I'm trying to be patient. Our next goals, as I mentioned, is our boards getting together and really redefining how we're going to move forward. And then our banquet is on April 25th. It's actually on the campus here at the Leighton Platt Center. And that's going to be an opportunity to actually share our vision going forward as we talk through kind of what we call Chamber 2.0.
Great. So looking forward to that. And I know you have a lot of awards that are presented that day as well, recognize people in the community that you've been talking about.
We do. We recognize education. We have the Golden Apple Awards for teachers. We award nonprofits, small businesses, and large businesses.
Great. Well, people put that on their calendar so we'll see what's happening at the end of April and get some more news from the Chamber then.
That's true.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank you for joining me today and sharing some information with our audience.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'd like to thank you, the audience, for joining us today on Newsmakers. I'm Judy Stiles. Hope you can join me again next week at the same time on the station. We'll see you then.